Sometimes it seems that luck is not on our side. But when something incredible happens, some people are literally very lucky, from frightening falls to lightning strikes. We present to you the luckiest people who have survived the incredible. Number 10. Natalia Pasternak. One day in June 2015, 55-year-old Natalia Pasternak and her older friend Valentina Gorodetskaya were collecting birch sap in a Siberian forest, unaware that they might never return home from this harmless walk. The women, unaware of it themselves, came onto the trail of a huge bear. At first, he encountered Valentina's dog and then saw Natalia and attacked her. Valentina tried to distract the wild animal from her friend with a stick, but then ran for help. Natalia was left alone with the bear for a whole hour. The bear decided that his torn prey was dead and began to bury Natalia with earth and leaves, intending to eat her later. Eventually, the police arrived and noticed that the injured woman was still breathing. The police had to shoot the bear, and after that they freed Natalia and took her to the hospital. Despite being buried alive and wanted to be eaten by a bear, Natalia Pasternak survived and even posted on social media, writing how wonderful life is. Number 9. Phineas Gage. The Phineas Gage case is mind-blowing. In September 1848, 25-year-old Gage was working as a blasting foreman on a railroad in Vermont when the disaster occurred. Using a crowbar, he was compacting the plug over the spent explosive charge. Suddenly, the gunpowder exploded and a meter-long crowbar with a diameter of 3 centimeters flew up. The crowbar entered Gage's left cheek, passed through his brain, exited through the back of his head, and then traveled another 24 meters. Surprisingly, Gage was able to reach the cart and his colleague, who took him to the doctor. The doctor was amazed to see that the patient was conscious and able to communicate. Although Gage lost his left eye, he was able to leave his house within a month and even had no problem remembering where and how the accident happened. But very soon, his friends and loved ones started to notice that something was wrong. Instead of a polite and kind person, he turned into an aggressive individual who forgot all manners, and relatives and friends stated that he was not himself. Studies conducted in 2012 concluded that the injury destroyed about 11% of white matter and 4% of the cerebral cortex, causing irreversible damage to his thought processes. To this day, Gage is considered one of the most famous neurology patients. Number 8. Casey Wagner. They say that lightning doesn't strike twice, but one man learned that this phrase isn't entirely true. In October 2013, 30-year-old Casey Wagner arrived at an annual event in Texas called Rednecks with Checks. Dark clouds began to gather, and while waiting for a friend who was in the bathroom, Wagner decided to hide under the nearest tree. This mistake cost him dearly. When he noticed that an electric spark was splitting the tree trunk, it was already too late. Casey was suddenly struck by lightning, and before he could fall to the ground, a second lightning strike hit his boot, sending an electric charge through his body. Fortunately, there was a nurse nearby who helped him and kept him conscious until the ambulance arrived. Amazing, but after only one night in the hospital, Casey was discharged without serious injuries. Doctors claimed that he is a living miracle. In the USA, the chances of being struck by lightning are about 1 in 750,000, so Casey was very lucky to survive a double strike. It can safely be said that he will no longer stand under trees in bad weather. Number 7. In August 2018, Sam Bor himself survived 4 days in the jungles of Cambodia without food, water, or the possibility to leave. And did I mention that he got stuck between 2 boulders? The 28-year-old Sam Bor was wandering through the mountain jungles in the northwestern province of Battambang in search of bat droppings or guano to sell. Suddenly, his flashlight fell into a small depression. While trying to retrieve it, Bor slipped and fell into a narrow crevice in the rock. There, he became stuck between 2 stones and struggled, unable to get out for 4 days. In the end, his concerned brother found him and contacted the rescuers. They took this incredible aerial photograph and began a long operation to save the man. 200 rescuers spent about 10 hours cutting away the rocks that had trapped him and eventually took him to a provincial hospital. After that, the chief of police in Cambodia banned climbing Mount Chakre. Despite the fact that Bora himself was barely alive after such an ordeal, he fully recovered and became an incredibly lucky person. Number 6. Christine McKenzie. Some people love skydiving, but for many, the thought of falling from the sky is a real nightmare, even if they have to jump with a parachute. When 23-year-old Christine McKenzie was preparing for her 112th jump in 2004, she did not suspect that it would be very different from the previous one. Kristen was jumping without an instructor from a height of 3 kilometers. The moment came to prepare for landing, and her parachute did not open. Trying not to panic, she pulled the emergency parachute cord, but the ropes got tangled and she fell for 45 seconds in free fall before crashing into the power lines. Absorbing the energy of her fall, the power lines saved Mackenzie's life. When she was taken to the hospital, it turned out she only had a broken pelvis. The parachute instructor was amazed that Kristen survived and stated that a malfunction of the reserve parachute is unheard of. Despite what she went through, Mackenzie announced while still in the hospital that she would jump again. Number 5. Greg Rasmussen. Greg Rasmussen worked in a reserve and found himself too close to the most ferocious predators in Africa. This happened in the year 2003. Rasmussen was flying in his plane over Hwanga National Park in Zimbabwe in search of rhinoceroses. Suddenly, he lost control during a strong wind and crashed into the ground. Quickly realizing that he had broken both legs, Rasmussen managed to crawl to the nearest tree to rest. But his nightmare was just beginning. His radio wasn't working and he couldn't send out a distress signal. Soon he realized he would have to wait for help amid wild animals. Vulnerable and unprotected, Rasmussen became easy and tempting prey for predators. Vultures were circling above him, and a herd of elephants approached the plane. Rasmussen immediately started hitting the plane's aluminum body with a stick. This scared off the elephants, and he did the same when he heard the terrifying roar of a lioness as the sun set. Rasmussen survived the night and scared off a hyena with the same banging, and in the morning he was found and rescued. After 100 surgeries, his legs started working again, but he had become 7 centimeters shorter. Number 4. Truman Duncan. Earning the title of Miracle Man is difficult, but the 40-year-old Truman Duncan definitely deserves it, as he was cut in half. In 2006, Truman was working at a railroad plant in Cleburne, Texas, when he fell between 2 moving freight cars and nearly ended up under their wheels. He held onto the carriage for 20 seconds and then ended up under the wheels that were holding the 9-ton carriage. Truman was dragged 15 meters and then cut in half through the pelvic bones. Truman miraculously remained conscious and was even able to call 911. He waited for the ambulance for 45 minutes. The medics couldn't find him right away. Due to blood loss, his life was hanging by a thread. But strangely enough, the heart, lungs, liver, and 1 kidney remained intact. After 23 operations in 4 months, Truman, who now uses a wheelchair, even returned to work in the office of the same railroad plant. Number 3. Anna Baggenholm. In 1999, Swedish radiologist Anna Baggenholm made medical history. She was rescued after she almost froze to death. 29-year-old Baggenholm was skiing on Mount Kjollen in Norway, but during the descent she lost control and fell into a frozen creek at the foot of the mountain. Due to the fall, the ice cracked and the water engulfed Anna headfirst. She was trapped under 20 centimeters of ice and couldn't get out. When her friends found her and tried to pull her out, only Anna's legs and skis were above the ice. After 40 minutes of shallow breathing in a small air pocket, Anna's body temperature dropped to 13.7 degrees Celsius and her circulation stopped. When rescuers arrived, she had been under the ice for 80 minutes. By the time she was taken to the hospital, she had been clinically dead for 2 hours. Doctors tried to warm Anna's blood, and suddenly, a day after the fall, her heart started beating again. She was paralyzed, but after a year, she was able to walk again. Doctors believed that the extreme cold slowed her metabolism and her brain required less oxygen. Now, induced hypothermia is practiced in critical cases to save lives. Number 2. Ron Hunt. It seems that a patient with such an X-ray simply cannot survive. But one very lucky man miraculously survived. On August 15, 2003, a construction worker named Ron Hunt was working at the Tahoe Donor Facility in Truckee, California. One mistake almost cost him his life. Hunt was drilling a hole above his head while standing on a ladder and pressed too hard, causing the ladder to wobble. Quickly realizing what was about to happen, Hunt, as required by safety regulations, threw the drill aside as he fell. However, it didn't fly too far, and he landed face down on a half-meter drill. The instrument pierced the head, entering through the right eye and exiting through the side of the skull. But the drill miraculously moved the brain aside, and Hunt avoided brain damage, paralysis, and death. At first, doctors wanted to cut out the drill, but then decided to unscrew it. Hunt recovered from the injury in just a month. Although he lost an eye and suffered a fractured skull, Hunt emerged relatively unharmed. His thought processes also remained unchanged, unlike the case of Phineas Gage. Before I continue, watch this incredible video where motorcyclist Taylor Smith takes off into the air and miraculously lands on his feet after a car struck him at high speed on his way home. An amazing incident occurred in San Francisco in the year 2015. Car appeared out of nowhere, running a red light at an intersection, and collided sideways with Smith. The Daytona 675 motorcycle was destroyed instantly, but fortunately Smith was wearing protective gear and remained unharmed. He only suffered minor bruises and was amazed that he safely landed on his feet. Probably, he also saved the lives of pedestrians who were crossing the road. Number 1. A lucky save. If you have seen Final Destination 2, then you remember this scene. Your fear of log-filled trucks will surely intensify when you see this photo. In October 2019, a driver from Georgia miraculously survived after logs pierced his car. An unidentified driver leaned down to pick up a coffee cup and collided with a logging truck. 40 logs shattered the windshield, went through it, and pierced the rear window. It seemed the driver simply couldn't avoid death, but fortunately the man only sustained minor injuries. During the collision, his seat was slightly reclined. Rescuers cut through many trees and saved the man within 10 to 15 minutes. They were amazed that the driver's head miraculously ended up in the perfect space between the logs. That's what saved him. He should urgently buy a lottery ticket. So lucky. Which of these people seemed the luckiest to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below the video, and thank you for watching.